Hi everybody and welcome back to another video at Smithsdale Farm. This video is not actually going to be part of our cabin build series. If you're looking for more on that, then I'll put a link in the description box below that will go to the playlist of those videos. Today's video is actually going to be about the land management and how we're actually going to collect enough water to be living off-grid on this piece of land in Spain.
We're Danny and Kate, and this is Paco. After 5 years living in Barcelona, enjoying city life, the beach and the slopes, it's time for a new adventure. Follow our journey as we build our very own tiny house and start a mortgage-free homestead in the mountains in Spain. Welcome to Smithsdale Farm.
So the video actually ends or starts with this IBC, which is full of 1,000 litres that's been taken from our water collection cisterna and pumped down into this IBC here. So we're actually going to start the video by going back a couple of months to April when we were first looking at how to harvest water on the land.
So since buying the land up in the Spanish mountains, we've been thinking a lot about water management. We don't have access to mains water, so we're going to have to control the water on the land pretty well to think about how we're going to keep water here for a year round and to live here off-grid.
So we've purposefully chosen a weekend that has a forecast of rain to come down to the land so that we can see where the water goes when it rains and where we can think about collecting it and what kind of permaculture methods we can use to collect more water for the future. So when we arrived last night, it was already raining, and as we were setting up camp and putting the tent inside and things like that, the rain started to get a little bit heavier, and it actually rained for most of the night. It rained in through the leaky roof and onto the top of the tent. So we were quite glad that we weren't camping outside because it meant that it was just a drip rather than constant rain all night. But what it does mean is that we can kind of assess what the land looks like after a night of rain. So this morning we went on a walk down to the valley part of our land to see what it looks like. Is there any water down there?
No, there isn't.
It's the coldest hand that run down this land where the ocean lands. It's the tallest sound, the damn smallest crowd, but their hearts break loud. Far from ever feeling lost with me, I'll push you back towards the land and sea. They're going down for love, and love is free. Stick with me and I will guarantee.
So because it was raining yesterday and over the last few days we've seen on the weather forecast there's been rain as well, we're kind of walking around the land to see where the water is, where it's catching or where there isn't any. And so we came to the bottom of the valley, which we came to I think in the summer, to show you how it was, and after rain it's still looking very, very dry. From what we've seen, the water seems to sink to bedrock and then run across that surface, which makes sense. And what we've seen further up the valley is there are patches of wet, so I kind of imagine the bedrock under here is where the water is, but we need to work out how deep that is.
You're never lost among the crowd with me.
One of the things that we know is going to be really important to sort out is the cisterna and the catchment behind that. Sorry for the sound, it's really windy today. So basically at the moment, the majority of it looks like this. There's lots of little kind of shrubs growing and things growing up through the rocks. Some of it's useful stuff like thyme and rosemary and kind of a little tea plant and things that we don't necessarily want to get rid of, but at the same time we need this area to be really clean and clear of vegetation and clear of soil for the rain to fall, and then when it falls it will run into the cisterna. We're just going to get cracking and clear as much of this as we can. This isn't going to be something that's a quick fix, and it's not going to be completely sorted within one season or even 1 year. It's likely to be something that has to be maintained and we need to keep on top of year after year, but eventually we'll end up with a cisterna that's full of clean water. So we've been clearing out the area that sits behind the cisterna for a little while now, and we've purposefully been taking this trench out and clearing it completely. So taking out any of the vegetation that's there, any of the plants, and also pulling out all of the kind of dirt and soil that's in there as well. The reason for that is that this is a natural channel for where the water comes down the bank that drives into the cisterna, and it collects and then comes down this channel to the side and then goes in through a little inlet. So what we don't want is for this to be collecting kind of dirt and silt and things as it goes in, because that just ends up in the bottom of the cisterna. So eventually, once we take all of that dirt and silt out of the bottom, we don't want to then re-put it in every year when it gets filled up with more water. And then what we've seen other people do is then kind of use cement or kind of concrete or other types of materials to then kind of line this part here so that it's a nice, clean, smooth path for the water to just run straight in.
So we want to try and estimate the size of the cisterna and the volume of water that it holds. Previously we tried with the tape measure, but the tape measure, once you get past a certain distance, drops in the water, makes it a very rough estimation. So we're going to use the stick to measure the diameter and then also to measure the depth of the water, and from that we should be able to work out the volume. And that's how much silt we've got.
So we've got 55 centimetres of silt in the bottom, and then it's 2 meters 10 in depth of water.
So when we were watching the water come down in the morning after it had rained, a lot of the water was coming out under the terraces on this bedrock. So what we were thinking was maybe to build some kind of mulch trench, and that way the mulch or the wood chips is able to absorb the water. That way we save the water that has come down, and it should store that and release it more slowly. So we should have water longer throughout the dry period. So this is all the branches and bits of olive wood that have been left on the land that we piled up last time. And so what we need to do is get a chipper and a generator as well, hopefully, and that way we can start at least putting more mulch or wood chips down on the ground, and then we could even start doing the trench here. And if you haven't seen the video where we started to prune all the olive trees, you should go back and watch that, because it was some tough work.
We've been exploring across some of the terraces and trying to have a look at what things look like now that there has been a little bit of rainfall for the last couple of weeks. So the ground is starting to look quite a lot greener, which is good. There's definitely grass starting to come up, particularly in the areas that we started to clear for where we're going to be building the cabin. And also what we've noticed is that we've got a few kind of volunteer plants. So essentially what they are plants that you want, but that have chosen to grow. You haven't necessarily planted them. So they're not necessarily growing in the place that you want them to grow. So for example, we have this fig tree that's actually starting to pop up here. We didn't see this when we first came to view the land, but we actually saw it on one of our trips later in, I think, the autumn, and it was really small, so it's actually grown quite a lot. And what this kind of shows us is that along with this, we've also got a set of grapevines as well that are growing up near the house, and it kind of proves that there is the possibility to grow things here, and it does look like there is enough water for things to grow well. It's just that maybe the water isn't necessarily in the right places or in the places that we want it to be. So I suppose what we need to do is think about how we're going to divert the water from where it naturally occurs into the places that's going to be more convenient or more manageable for us to have it. So we're now back to present day, and today is the day that we received these IBCs. So let's have a look at those getting delivered. It's another delivery day. We are having 3 cubos, which are like the IBC water containers, the 1,000 litre water containers. We're having 3 of those delivered today by somebody local, and we're hopefully going to use those to empty out part of the cisterna so that if it rains again we can collect more water, because it is totally full.
So we've just started siphoning off the water using a hose from the basement, and this is more or less the water level as it is currently, and then we'll take 1,000 litres, we'll see how much it drops by. So we've now taken 1,000 litres out of here, and you can see more or less where it's dropped from. So from this orange line here, and I'd say it's dropped about a foot, maybe just under. And then to drain 1,000 litres, it took 2 hours. So we were siphoning it off with quite a thin tube, but we didn't have to do anything. And then we left it. 2 hours later, we got a full IBC.
So there you have it. We now have the IBC in place with 1,000 litres of water, and it seems pretty apt that we made this video today when it started raining, and we're now able to collect more water in the cisterna because we've already siphoned some off to here. So a really great start for our off-grid living here on the land. If you'd love to follow along and see how this journey progresses, if you want to see us building the cabin, renovating the tiny house, all sorts of things like regenerative agriculture and bringing this land back into fruition, then please do consider subscribing to the channel if you aren't already. And if you've enjoyed this video, then do give us a big thumbs up. We'll see you on the next one.
Katie also promised that we can get a JCB to come through here and make it all level.
I absolutely did not.